Gratitude changed everything. What if the one thing standing between you and a completely different life was something as simple as gratitude? Not the kind you say when everything is going well, but the kind you hold on to when everything seems to be falling apart. Imagine being alone in the middle of a burning desert. No shade, no water, no comfort, just silence and suffering. That was the reality of a small bird, fragile, featherless, walking across scorching sand under an unforgiving sun. Every step was pain. Every breath was heavy. And deep inside, a question kept echoing, why me? Have you ever asked yourself that? When life gets hard, when nothing seems to go your way, do you ever feel like you're being tested beyond your limits? Days turned into nights, and nights into more suffering. When the sun disappeared, the cold took over like a different kind of prison. The little bird would close its eyes and cry in silence, feeling abandoned by the world. No hope, no direction, just survival. But then, something unexpected happened. A soft sound cut through the stillness. High above, gliding through the sky, was a magnificent white swan, graceful, radiant, almost unreal, like a messenger from another world. With the last bit of strength it had, the bird cried out, "Please, wait!" The swan heard it. And in that moment, everything began to change. The swan descended gently, its presence bringing a strange sense of calm. When it saw the small bird, weak, suffering, barely alive, its heart filled with compassion. "I am on my way to heaven," the swan said softly. The bird, trembling, whispered, "Please, ask when my suffering will end." That question carried more than pain. It carried desperation, the kind many people feel but rarely express. The swan nodded and took off, disappearing into the horizon. And now let me ask you, if you had the chance to ask one question about your life, what would it be? After a long journey, the swan reached the gates of heaven and stood before a wise and serene divine presence. It shared the bird's story, the pain, the loneliness, the endless struggle. The divine being listened quietly, then consulted the book of destiny. 7 more years of suffering, came the answer. A sentence that felt heavy, final, unchangeable. But the swan refused to accept it so easily. "It won't survive that long," it pleaded. And then, something unexpected happened. The divine presence smiled gently and said, "There is another way." Tell the bird to repeat these words with sincerity, "Thank you, God, for everything." No matter the situation. Gratitude has the power to transform destiny. When the swan returned, it found the bird exactly where it had left it, exhausted, lying on the burning sand. "I have a message," the swan said. "Repeat this every day. Thank you, God, for everything. Even when it hurts. Even when nothing changes." The bird looked confused. "Why would I be thankful if I'm still suffering?" And the swan replied with a calm certainty, "Be thankful first, and then watch what changes." And just like that, it left. But this time, it left something behind, a seed. At first, the words felt empty, mechanical, almost meaningless. But the bird tried. When the sun burned its fragile body, it whispered, "Thank you, God, for everything." When thirst became unbearable, it repeated the same words. Again and again. Slowly, something began to shift, not around it, but within it. The pain was still there, but it no longer felt the same. The despair started to soften. And in its place, something new began to grow. Hope. Let me ask you something important. What if your life doesn't change when you expect it to, but changes when you do? Days passed. Then something incredible happened. The sky, once empty and merciless, began to fill with dark clouds. The bird looked up, unsure of what it was seeing. A cool breeze touched its body for the first time. And then, thunder. Followed by rain. Real, powerful, life-giving rain. The bird opened its beak, drinking from the sky itself. Tears mixed with the water as it repeated, over and over, "Thank you, God, for everything." And in that moment, the desert began to transform. Weeks went by, and the impossible became visible. Green shoots broke through the dry earth. The ground softened. Life returned. The desert, once lifeless, became an oasis. The bird grew stronger. Feathers began to form, soft, vibrant, full of life. It built a nest. It flew. And for the first time, it sang. Not out of survival, but out of joy. And all of it started with something so simple: gratitude. Months later, the swan flew over the same place and couldn't believe what it saw. Where there was once emptiness, now there was abundance. Trees, water, life. It found the bird, no longer weak, but radiant, strong, alive. The swan returned to heaven and asked, "How is this possible?" The destiny said 7 years. And the answer came with clarity: its gratitude was stronger than its destiny. It transformed suffering into blessing. And here is the truth that changes everything. Gratitude is not a reaction. It's a decision. It's a frequency. When you choose to be grateful, even in pain, you begin to shift something deeper than circumstances. You shift yourself. And when you change, everything around you begins to follow. So now, let me ask you, in the middle of your struggles, have you been able to say, "Thank you, God, for everything"? Because maybe your miracle doesn't start when things get better. Maybe it starts the moment you decide to see differently. The moment you stop asking, "Why me?" and start saying, "Thank you." If this story touched something inside you, don't ignore it. Share it with someone who needs this message today. And take a moment, right now, to think of one thing you are truly grateful for. Because in the end, gratitude is the language of the heart that turns the impossible into reality. And the power to change your life may begin with just 2 simple words: "Thank you, God."